Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an almost long weekend. Let's jump into our business. Welcome to the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works meeting for Friday, July 2, 2021. I hope everyone is doing well, and it's good to see everybody. Good morning, Dr. Campos.
Good morning, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, establishing roll call and quorum for today. This morning we have President Good, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Caloza and Villegas. President Good, you do have a quorum. At this time, we currently do not have any callers under general public comment. We also do not have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We do have two callers on the line. One is for item number 1, and the second is for item number 3 that are waiting for public comments on those items. Also, Mr. President, there's been a request to continue item number 5 to Friday, July 16, 2021. There will be multiple presenters and additional time is needed to gather all the data to present to your board. So at this time, we are requesting, if there's no objections to your board, to continue the item again, item number 5 to Friday, July 16, 2021.
That sounds good. I will make that. Okay, great. Let's just go ahead and continue item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, so let's jump right in. Thank you, Dr. Campos. We'll first take the minutes from Wednesday, June 16, 2021. Do I have a second to my motion to approve and adopt?
Second.
Got a second from Dr. Davis. Any objections or concerns? Caloza or Villegas? Great. So hearing none, the minutes are approved and adopted. Mike, you're in the office. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's move to item 1. I will read the item, then let's hear a comment on the item, and then we'll open discussion. Okay? So item number 1. Sole source offer of work agreements, AFE, increased hauling rates, request for proposal as needed, haul truck program. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the president or 2 board members to approve up to 82 sole source offer of work agreements for the Bureau of Street Services as needed haul truck program for fiscal year 2021-22, plus 1 year renewal option for fiscal year 2022-23, and forward this report with transmittals to the mayor's office in compliance with Executive Directive number 3, ED3, Villegas series. 2, approve and execute a fiscal year 2021-22 authority for expenditure in the amount of $11.8 million for as needed haul truck services upon approval of ED3 requirements. 3, approve the haul truck rates 18% increase for the as-needed haul truck program effective July 1, 2021, and require the truck operators refuel at pumps that dispense renewable diesel to reduce carbon emissions. And 4, authorize the Director of the Bureau of Street Services to initiate the development and release of a request for proposal for trucking brokerage services estimated to commence on July 1, 2023, that A, awards a contract utilizing a competitive bid process that complies with the City of Los Angeles contracting requirements in AB5. B, requires a selected trucking brokerage firm to provide trucking opportunities to existing 2021-22 as needed haul truckers. And C, identifies opportunities and strategies for winning firms to contribute to the city's sustainability efforts and reduce carbon emissions in support of Council File 19-1351. Stephanie Clements from Streets LA is here to present. Dr. Campos, can we first hear our public comment on the item?
Absolutely, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. The Board of Public Works is now considering item number 1 for general public comment. If you joined us after the 10 o'clock hour, and if you'd like to provide any commentary on item number 1, if you can please press star 9 at this time to raise your hand. Currently, we do have one caller on the line, Mr. President. We'll go ahead and connect that person through. Caller ending in 565. Caller ending in 565. Kenyatta, if you can please press star 6 at this time to unmute your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak on item number 1.
Yes, my name is Kenyatta Cole, speaking on item number 1. The as-needed program, when it comes to the as-needed program truckers, we are in agreement with items 1 through 3, but we do not approve item number 4, especially the B section. We ask and request that item number 4 be totally removed. We never agreed to number 4. We never did greenlight it. It was spoke on, but we never agreed to it. We never wanted it. We don't offer it. We do have 2 or 3 alternatives that we will give to the Bureau of Street Services and meet with the Board of Public Works at a later date. We also have AB 1 to speak on, AB 1561, that will allow us to continue to work till January 1st, 2025, and it has been voted on 75, approved by by the commissioners of the City of Los Angeles to continue to work to be exempt. Real quick, we're asking for a 3-year extension and not a 2-year extension that will allow us to allow AB 5 to go ahead and play out. As you can see, there are a lot of work that's not being done because of AB 5. A lot of projects are on hold because of AB 5. But this will, AB 1561, will allow us to continue to work. Once again, we do not agree with number 4. We ask that number 4 totally be removed. We don't want a broker, never wanted a broker. And you can, when you sole source, you cannot tell a broker how to run their business. They can agree with your terms or qualify with your with your agenda, but you can't tell them how to run their business. And so your qualifications, they can meet your qualifications, but when it comes to telling them how to run their business, you won't be able to do that. This program has worked for 131 years, and it'll continue to go on. We've given our lives to the program, and we just ask that number 4 be reconsidered, taken off, removed, and we do have 3 alternatives to number 4. Once again, we're asking for a 3-year extension and not a 2-year, and that will allow us to continue to provide a service to the Bureau of Street Services, resurfacing and paving our streets that our community will have better communities, better neighborhoods, better quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that is the last caller on the line for item number 1. No other members from the general public have raised their hand at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Campos. Ms. Clements, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners, and happy new fiscal year.
And Ms. Clements, yes. A quick little note. If you could also, in the presentation, I was a little confused. Could you address what our caller alluded to in terms of city commissioners, other city commissioners approving something relative to AB 1516? I was confused by that. Who was talking about?
Well, Kenyatta and I have spoke on that. There are bills at the state legislature that may tweak AB 5 or state legislation associated with that.
Right.
And so that's what Kenyatta is referring to. I don't believe it's any other city commissioners.
Oh, I thought I heard him allude to other city commissions.
Hello, hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
I need to ask if I can elaborate a little bit more on that. On May 27th, our state representatives voted unanimously 70.
Caller ending in 244. I'm sorry, this is Fernando Campos. Can you please state your name? Did you want to? Are you part of the Bureau of Street Services? Or
Yes, I would, Fernando, if I may.
Pause, please. Who is speaking?
Thank you.
Victor Vasquez Sr., truck number 293.
Okay, for everyone's edification, I'm the chair of the meeting. I will determine who speaks. You need to identify yourself and show some respect for the board. So please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Just to give you guys an update, on May 27th, it was our state representatives that voted unanimously, Democrats and Republicans, 75-0 on AB 1561. Assembly bill is with no opposition, and it will allow construction only, not anybody else, not Uber, Lyft, the rail, the ports. It will allow construction to continue until January 1st, 2025. Just that's the fact.
Okay.
Now,
Thank you.
I wanted to clear that up for you guys. Also,
Sir, please, sir. What I still don't have an answer to is, I understand AB 15516 is passed. I'm crystal clear about that. Thank you. What I'm asking is, the first caller alluded to other city commissioners. If that was a misstatement, that's fine. I just want to understand if somebody else has somehow been involved, and I don't think that's the case. So I understand 1516. I just want to understand the comment about other city commissioners. So, Ms. Clemens, why don't you proceed and folks can gather themselves and answer that question. And it could just be that it was a mistake.
I misspoke.
Thank you. There we go. All good. Thank you then.
All right.
That's helpful. It's just that this work lies within this board. And so I wanted to understand if somehow other folks were involved, which wouldn't make sense to me. So I appreciate it. Thanks for the clarification. Really appreciate it. Okay, now, here we go. Ms. Clements, please proceed.
Hey, Stephanie Clements, Assistant Director, Bureau of Street Services, also known as Streets LA. In front of you this morning is a series of recommendations associated with our long-standing as-needed contract truck program. This is a very important yet complicated and nuanced agenda item for Streets LA that is near and dear to our hearts. And as such, I have a team here with me today of Streets LA staff to help present the recommendations laid out in this report. We have Greg Spots, also Assistant Director and Sustainability Officer for Streets LA. Melinda Chow, Head of our Administrative Division overseeing contracts. Greg and Melinda will be going into greater detail specifically for recommendation number 3. We also have Sandy Zhu, who's our program administrator, who handles the day-to-day operations of the program administration. Last but not least, we have Keith Mose on the call to answer any operational questions, and also we have Bob Sewell, Division Manager of Street Renewal Division. There are 4 recommendations listed in the board report, and recommendations 1, 2, and 3 relate to how this program would look like for the next 2 fiscal years through June 30th, 2023. And recommendation number 4 relates to a change in this program starting July 1st, 2023. To start off, I want to provide a quick context and background for this program and where we are today. As you well know, the Streets LA As Needed Contract Truck Program is a very long-standing program in the city of Los Angeles dating back to the 1890s. The program establishes an annual on-call contractual list of truckers who can be called upon as needed to perform truck hauling services associated with our various street renewal and maintenance activities. As you know, this is a very unique, one-of-a-kind contractual program in the city, so it doesn't fall neatly into any traditional contract category or process. And as you also know, this may be unofficially or anecdotally the most successful in terms of percentages minority-owned business program in the city. There are currently 82 truckers in this program, and while we do not require them to be MeeBee certified, based on a recent survey we initiated, we can report that at least 79% of its participants are either African American, Hispanic, or Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. The board last discussed this item in the end of January 2021. At that time, we explained that 2020 was really a critical year for this program, both due to COVID and the contractual restrictions and increased scrutiny of this contract from a perspective of city contracting requirements. But even more paramount than that, there were some changes to state legislation. And since that end of January meeting, Streets LA has been working very hard behind the scenes, trying to figure out how to balance all these things and comply with city, state requirements and also environmental concerns, along with the needs and wants of our loyal truckers who are integral to our street operations. So in front of you this morning are recommendations that would, one, continue this program basically as is for the next two years through June 30th, 2023, along with a request to approve $11.8 million AFE for this fiscal year. It would also provide an 18% increase to hourly and tonnage wage rates to our existing truckers in the program, and it would help reduce our carbon footprint. But it would also direct Streets LA to start initiating the development of an RFP for truck brokerage services that would commence July 1st, 2023, that would comply with city and state legislation, comply with various city contracting requirements, and would expand sustainability efforts that would further reduce the carbon emissions for this program, and we would require any firm selected to provide employment opportunities to our existing truckers. As we all know, there may be changes to state legislation in this interim, and if there are changes, then we would return back to the board and make tweaks to the direction to initiate an RFP. I'm now going to pass the baton to Melinda to discuss how Streets LA derived at the 18% increase to our existing truckers, and then Greg Spots, who will discuss our efforts to improve the sustainability of this program and reduce our carbon footprint. So Melinda?
Ms. Cho, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, good morning, commissioners. So the truckers are currently paid hourly for intra-zone deliveries, as well as by tonnage for interzone. They also are paid standing time, rerouting, and show-up fees. And basically, their rates are determined by their truck classification, and they are specifically low side, high side, 10-wheel, and 12-wheel. So their rates have not changed since March 2015, and we're asking for an 18% increase to account mainly for inflation. We looked at the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, for the LA area for all items, and that changed from March 2015 to May 2020 by 18%. We also looked at the average price of diesel fuel in the West region area, and that in that same period of time, and that increased by 19.3%. We also looked at the truck driver rates, and there was an approximately similar percentage increase. So the 18% really is to account for change in pricing and inflation. And this has basically been 6 years of pricing that has remained the same. So we feel that the 18% is a reasonable increase. As I mentioned, they are paid in different ways, and we are proposing that 18% increase be applied to all of those rates that I mentioned earlier. Now, obviously, with 18% increase, the amount of output that we will be receiving from the truckers will be less for the same amount of money. However, based on an estimated fiscal year 2021 usage of $10 million, the 18% would basically equate to 1.8 million increase. And so that would assume 10 million plus our 1.8 increase would be $11.8 million. That is the amount that we are asking for the authority for expenditure to take place in this fiscal year 21-22. And should our demand for tracking services increase, we usually will get additional funding for those special projects, and we can always appropriate additional funds to the tracking program as the need arises.
All right, so Greg?
Morning. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Melinda. And greetings, commissioners. I'm Greg Spotts, Assistant Director and Chief Sustainability Officer for Streets LA. I'm very excited to share with you a little bit of detail about the renewable diesel opportunity and how valuable that will be in our larger efforts within the Bureau to reduce the carbon emissions of our fleet and materials hauling operations. In the spring of 2020, we started a one-year project with a FUSE fellow, Susan Sanchez, who's an environmental scientist. And we tasked her with calculating a baseline of the carbon emissions and air pollution emissions of all of our vehicular operations, including our own vehicles and the contract trucking fleet. And she gave recommendations on how we could reduce those emissions. We know that shifting from diesel to CNG to compressed natural gas is one way to reduce carbon emissions. And in our own internal fleet of heavy trucks, we've done a lot of that. We're mostly buying CNG, and our fleet is about 25% CNG. The fleet for the truckers is an all-diesel fleet with an average age of a 2011 model year. So it's an average of 10 years old diesel trucks. What our environmental scientists told us is that if you look at a life cycle of the fuel, we call that well to wheel, from the oil well all the way to the wheel. The traditional diesel or CNG that comes from a petroleum extraction process has an enormous amount of carbon emissions from those upstream activities. The exploration for those oil and gas, the extraction of the oil and gas, and the refining of the oil into diesel. And if you use renewable diesel that's made from waste products, you can reduce those emissions by 80%. It's an incredible opportunity that Argonne National Labs has identified, and there are many cities that are now only buying renewable diesel and renewable CNG. Metro recently did a contract to fuel all of their natural gas buses with renewable CNG. The city of LA recently did a renewable CNG contract. So my 100 sweepers that are moving every day are all fueling with renewable CNG, and the city's pursuing a renewable diesel contract for the fuel pumps we operate. So we wanted in parallel to make a small adjustment to this program where we would require our truckers, who are our partners here, to fuel at stations that provide renewable diesel. It's usually the same price. Sometimes it's branded as renewable diesel, sometimes it isn't, and we will identify the right pumps for them to use. It generally costs the same as diesel, and in fact, sometimes they don't even say it's renewable, but we know where it is. We'll work with them to find the right stations that are on their routes. But by doing this, we can literally take the life cycle carbon emissions of the hauling of these materials by our contract truckers and reduce them by 80%. And our truckers are excited about partnering with us in this very important environmental initiative.
Thank you, Greg. And so we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate that presentation. And just as a follow-up, in my briefing, we looked at a map. So there's at least, I think, 18 stations dispersed around the city that do provide the renewable diesel. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's more. We're learning. We're starting to reach out to the distributors, and we're learning there's some that don't even brand it as such. But the diesel, what it says on the pump, is really renewable diesel. So we'll develop an even enriched map for the truckers to use.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Coloso.
Sorry about that. Clicked out. Thank you, President Good. Thank you, Streets LA for your presentation, and thank you to the callers who joined us today, to the truckers. We appreciate hearing from you and your feedback. I guess I will start at the COLA, the cost of living increase, the 18%. I appreciate Ms. Cho, you kind of elaborate a little bit more about how you got to the 18%. And I know you mentioned that there hasn't been an increase in 6 years. Is that what you said? So was there an increase in 2015 or something? Just so from my understanding about how this was calculated.
Yes. So in February of 2015, the Streets LA went before the board for a rate increase, and that was basically the trucker program rates were completely changed back in 2015 when they used to be paid by one truck classification, one rate, and in the 2015 report, it was modeled so that it more resembles the trucking industry. They broke the trucker rates into 4 truck classifications at that time, and that we continue to follow that model, and the only change that we're making is really just applying that 18% across all those different types of rates. And as I mentioned, for intrazone, they are paid an hourly rate. For interzone, they're paid a price per ton, as well as there are standby times and rerouting fees, as well as a minimum fee for showing up. So all of these rates have the 18% being applied.
Okay, and so 2015, what was the value of the contract then? Just so I'm trying to follow the span of like what this has been costing from 2015 out to 2021. I know you explained and elaborated the increase of 1.8 million for this. Can you just walk me through that so I can understand?
Over the years, the Bureau has spent roughly $9.5 million to about $10.5 million. So they vary depending on the specific resurfacing needs that the Bureau has. And from time to time, we get many special projects, for example, projects that may be coming from Metro, projects that other proprietary departments may need our assistance in terms, for example, airports or DWP, who may require our services to help with blowouts or any kind of a paving project where they are basically treating the Bureau of Street Services as a contractor. In such situations, we are often provided additional funding and for that service, and so we will appropriate additional funds to the program as the need arises. So even though we are applying the 18% for this next 2 fiscal years, we do not see any potential issues in terms of funding available.
Okay, that kind of answered my question, but I'm going to move on for the next one. So for the 18% increase that's going to be applied, you said to confirm for this fiscal year and then the next fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk me through the timing? I know it was brought up by one of the callers about 2 versus 3 years and your thought process by that. I think I know the answer, but it would be helpful to hear from you about what the timing, how that timing was determined.
Yeah, we're just trying to balance a lot of things, city contracting requirements, changes to state legislation. And so we felt that 2 years was a reasonable time frame. Typically, as you know, the truckers only get a 1-year commitment. In the past, it was always a 1-year commitment. So due to all these changes and things going around us, the thought was at least give them, a 2-year commitment, a guarantee of work that for at least the next 2 years, nothing is going to change. It also buys time for us. It buys time for, state legislation to change. It buys time for the truckers to maybe, change their professional paths. So we thought it was reasonable. We're open to discussion of, a different time frame, but that was kind of, a way that we could balance all these different things going on at the same time.
Got it. Thanks for reminding me. This is typically a 1-year AFE. I remember that now. And I guess this is a question for Ted, but technically it's 2 years and then a 1-year extension. That doesn't have to go through City Council if it's if this contract is structured in that way.
So just to clarify, it's a total of 2 years. It's a max of 2 years.
Okay.
And so I know it's always like, is it 2 plus 1 but no, it's 1. So the an AFE is just an annual authority. So that's all we can ask for now, but we want to extend it 2 years. So really next year, this time, we'll come back with another AFE for the 22-23 fiscal year.
Got it. Okay, I see it here now. I think I just heard wrong. For some reason, I thought this was a 2-in-1, but it's 1-in-1. Okay, thanks for.
And just for clarification, again, as Stephanie mentioned, this is an annual program, and we will be continuing to pay by AFE. So the way we're writing the agreement, the offer of work, is that we will do a 1-year offer of work agreement, but we choose to, if the city decides to continue that AFE process for the next fiscal year, we would basically offer an option to extend that offer of work agreement to the truckers so that we do not have to go through another enrollment period for the truckers, and it would simply be an extension of their current contract.
Got it. Okay. And so then what we have here is actually, I know it's an AFE, but essentially it's like 23.6 million, right? If you included the second year.
Yeah, but yes, if it just stayed static. But as you guys know, our work programs are not static. And this year may be a wild year for us, and we may, expand a lot. And so maybe that number may go up. But yes, if you just multiplied it by 2, you'd get to that amount.
Okay. I just want to understand the total value of what it is we have before us. Okay. And then just kind of wrapping up here before I give it back to my colleagues, is I know one of the callers talked about recommendation 4, and they had disagreements with why it was included. Can you all just elaborate for me a little bit about, what that discussion was? Is that something that needs to be reconsidered here before we vote on this item, just so we as a board have the information and make sure that we fully understand implications either way of what it would need to include or to keep that item or to remove it as requested by one of the truckers?
Yeah, we've had multiple conversations with the truckers, and they are aware that there are these changes to city and state requirements that may need us to adjust how we implement this program moving forward. So from their perspective, the truckers would like to just continue this program as is. They would like to continue getting a sole source contract every year and continue this program. And they would say, and we would agree with them, that, they provide a service, they are integral to us, they've been loyal to us, and we totally agree with that. But we're city employees, and we're trying to follow the rules and the laws. And so this is our attempt to comply with everything that's going on, but also to consider sustainability concerns that we have, and also to try to look out for them, to provide them with employment opportunities. And we're also trying to look out for them in the short term by really looking at the wage increases and increasing what they get. So that's why we suggested the RFP, because based on city and state guidelines, it appears that we cannot continue this program as is.
Maybe I can clarify a little bit. I think it was specifically the trucking brokerage firm, if I remember the comment directly, that was their issue. And that just has to do with the AB5 requirements is what I'm hearing.
Well, actually, there's more than that. They have expressed concerns that in a truck brokerage model, they don't get paid on time. This is what we've been told by the truckers. You know, brokerage firms are, you know, a private business, and it's all about the bottom line and the profit. So they feel from their perspective that they won't be treated as well or compensated as well with a truck brokerage model.
Okay. Thanks for elaborating on that a little bit more. We'll kind of wrap up here and look forward to seeing what else my colleagues ask for this. And I know there's a 2-year period for transitioning to that point, right? A lot can change, to your point. That said, I'm just going to wrap up here and just thank you again to your team. And I appreciate you all mentioning the renewable diesel. That's a really good bright spot for this program that we haven't looked at before. And of course, all the really good numbers with, the business owners who are incredibly diverse for this program. And I appreciate that. But I think I'm good with all my questions for now, President Good.
Thank you, Commissioner Coloso. President Pro Tem Davis.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Mike.
All right, can you hear me now? Thank you. The contract, I think, has several issues here that have been raised, some of which Commissioner Coloso raised. But first, let me say that as we look at culture versus climate, I am seeing some transformation of some of the impacts of our new culture in the city of Los Angeles as it relates to this particular motion. It's a great example as to how we can explore some of the challenges we have as an organization, as a city. When we look at the policy in the state that is impacting us, for example, as we look at construction work, current state laws allow in the construction world that we do work with one set of rules, and then yet when we look at the policy as it relates to the truckers who are independent contractors, then it presents a second set of rules. That's not any indifferent than what we find in other areas of policy. For example, in the federal government, when we look at crack cocaine, and Greg is an attorney, he can certainly understand the difference in sentencing with crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. It's all cocaine. Is this all contracting? Sole source, there are some other areas in the city that sole source. So having said all of that, I do want to first start off to say, Stephanie, I'm very proud at the way that you have approached this problem in your responses and some of the things that you all have done. And I see a difference between our past, what I considered as climate, to now what I see as a developing culture. And the difference between climate and culture is climate, you just do something, if the mayor's coming, we'll clean up right quick. That's climate. Culture is something that we naturally do and are concerned about. And I see in your approach, and I'm very proud, is the reason why I'm mentioning this, a very comprehensive approach to solving this problem. Namely, specifically, when you have analyzed the problem as you have, and you have looked, I think, objectively in everything that you have done. Secondly, when Greg talks about looking at how we can reduce emissions and applying sustainable practices, as well as I'm very pleased that employment benefits were considered. Coloso asked the question earlier. I've been here since 2013. And back then, I think we were more into climate than culture. And so in 2013, we discovered 2 years later that we were out of context in terms of what we paid truckers versus what other people in the market paid. In other words, everybody else who had truckers in the Southern California area were paying considerably much more than what we were paying. Thus, the need for us in 2015 to adjust accordingly. And so this time, we didn't have to raise that issue with you, Stephanie. You came in here already with a response to that problem. And that's why I'm proud of your approach and why I think it's worth mentioning, because you know I'm going to get to what I have an issue with as well, but I wanted to get the positive out first. So having said that, would you be opposed to us looking at the 3-year extension that some of the people who are the workers have stated? Stephanie?
I would not personally be opposed to it, and I don't believe Keith would be. However, these do have to get approved by the mayor's office through ED3, who then refers it to the CAO's office for review.
Yeah,
So,
I'm familiar with the process. I just want to do my piece
so I can't
in terms
speak
of where
for
it is
them,
right now.
but yes, but from the Bureau's perspective, unless Keith wants to say something otherwise, we wouldn't be opposed to it.
And again, as I said, I talked earlier about climate versus culture. Climate would be worrying about what the mayor's going to do. Culture would be what do we think would be in the best interest of the city. And certainly the mayor's going to be our leader and always has been, and we will go with his final decision. But it does not excuse us from our own accountability and responsibility in terms of when it comes to us. And it comes to us first. And we have to do the best we can. And so I appreciate your response to that end. The other issue had been raised was something about brokers. And that I know that we have a very good reason for having brokers from our perspective inside of the table, because the broker would do the work. But Stephanie, you analyzed the issue and you were able to describe to us what the workers were saying about being under the jurisdiction of a broker, that it would not allow them to have the best job satisfaction. And among those variables that occur is a lack of getting paid on time. And I guess we could start with those of us as commissioners in terms of trying to reimagine if we didn't get paid on time. So having said that, is the brokerage the only opportunity in which to implement such a program as this? Stephanie?
No, there are other opportunities, and we've had in this since January we have been exploring all sorts of opportunities, from employment or having the truckers be unionized, and some of these we've spoken to the truckers about, and they have not expressed interest in those other approaches. They really would like to continue the program as is.
Sure.
They do not want a broker.
Sure.
Nor have they expressed positive interest in other approaches.
Sure. And I understand that. I also understand in your earlier comments, the legislature is seriously considering its actions, which they have not done yet.
Right.
And in many levels of government, as I said, in the federal government, we had to look at the disparity in the cocaine application. We said powder cocaine was one sentence, and we almost tripled it in crack cocaine, and it's all cocaine. Now, we have contractors in the very same department called Public Works who are allowed to do one thing, and we have truckers who are providing transportation services in the very same department, Public Works, who by state law have another set of rules. And so it's appropriate that the state legislature is exploring what the culture should be as opposed to what the climate is. So with that, I think that these are issues that we can consider if we try to develop a culture where we want all of our employees to the human extent possible to have job satisfaction. Certainly we don't want to be unreasonable. but to the point that we can have job satisfaction. So what that means to me is, and I appreciate that it's not the end of the world with you if we say 3 years. I would like to see us consider that, because again, my job here with the truckers is the same as it is with the prime contractors who I advocate for, because they're in my area of contract administration. I advocate for their job satisfaction. And today on this motion, I'm advocating for the job satisfaction of our truckers equally. And so therefore, certainly I would like for us to see if, in fact, we can address it in a way, notwithstanding that the legislature hasn't done anything yet, and we don't know what they will or will not do. But for me, in summary, those two issues I would like to see us address if we can, with my understanding that we can achieve an environment and a culture where we have job satisfaction, and not a climate where we're trying to get to some other goal other than job satisfaction. So I thank you for your approach. I'm very pleased with it, having sat here for all these years and seeing the approach to these problems from street services. I see a very cultural, robust plan that you've put before us, and I will just conclude to say, I would like to see us support 3 years, and I would like to see us to look at whatever alternatives there might be for brokerage, because one thing I don't want, as I do not want contractors who are doing construction work to get their checks late, and I certainly don't want the truckers in the street services division to get their check late any more than I would want Greg Good, Jessica Colosa, Teresa Villegas, or Mike Davis to get their checks late.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just wanted to add to my previous comments that Kenyatta, through the public comments, did mention that he has some other ideas, and we did talk this morning, and he mentioned that. So we'll be meeting with Kenyatta to talk about any other alternatives also. I didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the motion.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Thank you, Stephanie. Commissioner Villegas.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to the team from Streets LA for your thorough presentation. I appreciate the public comment as well. I also appreciate the comments from my my colleagues on the commission. Very thoughtful, and just provide additional context to what we have before us. You know, as I listen, and as I've just gone through several meetings on this issue, I realize that Streets LA is trying to find that balance, and striking that balance is an iterative process, and it's one where we come together to do a lot of consensus building. And these are not easy issues, and that's why we ask for just additional time, and all with the with trying to be able to always be in compliance as well. I do think that in having this. That's my husband's. If you hear it ding, I don't know how to use his computer, but sorry for that. When we talk about having job security, this is, to the credit of the city, having this program since, the late 1800s to now is certainly job security. And, that's for, several generations of the trucking businesses. And, for that, we applaud, the city for doing, just being able to sustain, that for so long. And I think that we're at a point where, we just need to make, some additional changes. And I do applaud the Streets LA staff for trying to, convene and trying to, get through some of these issues. I think that the 2 years that we have on our board, letter today before us is enough time to be able to, come to some sort of agreement. If there are changes to be needed, we can come back and provide extensions to that. This isn't anything that will preclude us from, from moving forward. It's ample enough, for 2 years, 11.2 million with an 18%, increase for cost of living adjustments. and in making all of the the sustainability issues also heard, and being able to comply with those. These are not issues that we're making up. These are issues that are that are of relevance right now. I think that what we have before us is fine, but I also do believe that if there's any adjustments that we can make, possibly just item 4, the board letter, that is an issue that we can continue to discuss and see if we should possibly remove that item, but just keep the 2 years in the event that we need to make additional changes. I think that that's enough time.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Mine were more of the comments. I really appreciated my colleagues' questions. Again, I know I mentioned that earlier, but that really gave a lot more context for the discussion that we have before us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. All right, I'm going to be efficient and just say a few things. One, I would echo President Pro Tem Davis's and Commissioner Villegas and Commissioner Close's appreciation for Streets LA's really pretty exhaustive efforts to figure this out in a way that preserves the very good things about this program. I would also say that the more that I've learned about the program, the more I certainly appreciate the let's say inclusion numbers, or just the demographics of this list is amazing relative to pretty much anything else we do in this city. And so I very much appreciate it. We also live in a land of laws, and we have to navigate that landscape. And we also and there's also fluidity in those laws, and we have to be flexible toward those ends. So, relative to recommendation 1, I'm comfortable. I certainly understand the desire to have 3 versus 2, but to Commissioner Villegas's point, I think 2 is sufficient time to continue this work. It in no way precludes, again, Streets LA from coming back, particularly if circumstances and dynamics change. And I'm quite confident that if circumstances and dynamics change, and or if other ideas emerge, that Streets LA will be quite ready to come back and will come back to us. So I'm comfortable with recommendation 1. I'm also comfortable with recommendation 2, consistent with that. With recommendation 3, I'd echo Mike that I was admittedly kind of taken aback when I first read the report for you to come to us to ask for this level of increase, and you make, I think, a fair case relative to the CPI on all of those fronts. So I am, and I very much appreciate the vision with the second part of recommendation 3 as well. So I'm comfortable with recommendation 3. Recommendation 4, I do have concerns about. Among them, just procedurally, I would not, under any circumstance, want to approve the basically development and release of an RFP without that coming back to us. Nothing precludes the Bureau of Streets Services or Streets LA from initiating an RFP process, working collaboratively with the truckers, et cetera, where procedurally it would count is to bring that RFP to us. And that procedurally is something that I think is problematic. And look, I just, at the risk of being master of the obvious, I ain't interested in anybody not being paid on time. I'm not that familiar with the brokerage system, but least of all, folks who are grinding away doing the work that we need done in the city. That is, I think, unconscionable. I presume that there are good brokerages and bad brokerages, and that would be part of a process like that. But I'm pretty convinced, based on this conversation, that the items in 4 are there's just too much question there right now for me. So, colleagues, what I'm going to recommend is this. Would start with a motion to amend and strike recommendation 4.
Second.
Okay, do I have, Dr. Campos, why don't we go ahead and vote on that? Thank you, Dr. Davis. Let's do a roll call on that one.
Mr. President, this is just to strike out recommendation number 4, or is the motion to approve the items 1 through 3 and delete 4?
That's, you know what?
Just for clarity.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Campos. That's infinitely more efficient. So I will motion to approve items 1 through 3 and eliminate recommendation 4. Mike, do I have your second on that?
Second.
Okay. Is that clear, Dr. Campos?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. We will now do the voting tabulation and roll call for the item. The board has proposed, or there's a motion by President Good, seconded by President Pro Tem Davis, to approve the item as amended, approving recommendations 1 through 3 and deleting recommendation number 4 from the report. Voting now begins. President Good?
Aye.
President Pro Tem Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Caloza?
Can I just have a point of clarification? So maybe this is for President Good. So if we strike that section, are you then just going to have to come back, because they still need our authority to release the RFP and start the process? Is that your?
Yeah, if that's the process that they stay with. I think that there's 2 years here for them to go back to the well to figure this out. But yes, my direction, independent of the board, would be if Streets LA does continue to feel like an RFP is the deal, they need to just come to us with with the request to release an RFP.
Notwithstanding state legislation.
All these things, yeah. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Kind of. I just don't want to tie their hands if they need to work on, or they need the authority to work on.
Yeah, no. I'm not amending to say they should not or cannot work on an RFP. Right. I'm just striking the recommendation because procedurally it doesn't make sense for them to ask us for authority to release an RFP before they've actually come to us with the RFP anyway. So they have to come back to us. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Then can you repeat the vote, Dr. Campos?
Absolutely, Commissioner Caloza. The motion before your board is moved by President Good, seconded by President Pro Tem Davis, to approve as amended recommendations number 1 through 3 and delete recommendation number 4.
I'll vote aye.
And Commissioner Villegas.
I vote aye as well.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion carries unanimous.
Did you get Garcia?
Garcia is not in the quorum at this time.
Yes, she is.
No, but I think we have to read it.
I'm saying, okay, got it. Thank you. All right.
Good morning, Vice President.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Didn't want to interrupt.
Commissioner Garcia, I apologize. I did not see you log into the item. Were you here part of the deliberation? I can go ahead and record your
Just
vote.
at the very end of everything. So no, I think just move forward. I'll pick up from the next item.
Mr. Jordan, since she is on the line, is a vote required from Commissioner Garcia since we have started the actual voting, just for clarity?
Let's just analogize to an actual meeting when we're all in the room. So she's walked in the room. If she's present in the room, her vote will be recorded as a yes, even if she doesn't actually exercise it. A report, this is not a sort of a due process matter where we're revoking someone's permit or something like that. There's a report that's been submitted to the board in writing. It's on the agenda. There's a motion to essentially strike one of the recommendations. The other recommendations are there unchanged. She's entitled to vote on the matter. She chooses not to vote. You will go ahead and record her vote as yes because she's in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan, for that clarity, and apologies, Commissioner Garcia, I did not see you virtually walk into the meeting, but you are now in the meeting and you do have the option to vote on this item. And the item before you is to approve item number 1 as amended, approving recommendations 1 through 3 and deleting recommendation 4. We will take your vote at this time.
I'm going to abstain and go with the city attorney's recommendation that it will just go automatically into a yes, just because I didn't hear all the comments, all the deliberation that happened. So I'm just, it's fine if it goes as a yes. It's fine.
Great.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. So that motion does carry. We have 4 ayes and we have 1 abstain that will result into a yes.
So they just, we have this issue that comes up from time to time. The official record of the vote will be 5-0.
Great.
You can put in the minutes that she stated I abstained, but the official recorded vote will be 5-0.
We will enter
clear?
We will enter it as abstain and reflect the vote as 5-0.
Someone asked what the vote was. The vote was 5-0.
We will indicate abstain and also reflect 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
All right, so the item is adopted as amended. Forthwith, I will just say, closing again, thank you to Streets LA for the work. Thank you.
Yes, great work, great job, Streets LA.
Yes, thank you to Kenyatta and Mr. Vasquez, I think it was, who joined us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the truckers for their work for, I don't know, 100 years. So thank you.
131.
Is it
131 of July 1st.
Yeah. Thank you, and I encourage you to continue working with Streets LA. We do still have a significant challenge here. So, but thank you for being here, and thank you for your input and collaboration, and thank you, colleagues, for the discussion. I think that was helpful and healthy, and thank you, Mr. Jordan, for your help on this. So, with that, we'll move on. That brings us to item number 2. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ms. Cho. Thank you, Streets LA. All right. Item 2. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's forward to item 3. Item number 3 is amendment number 1, memorandum of agreement, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Hargreaves Jones Landscape Architecture, Inc., Silver Lake Reservoir Complex Master Plan Project. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the Bureau of Engineering to sign the memorandum of agreement, amendment number 1, between the Bureau of Engineering and the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, as approved by the LADWP board on February 9, 2021, to extend the agreement time to September 12, 2023, and to expand the scope to include an environmental impact report using remaining funds from the original MOA. 2, increase the total funding amount from $2,914,545 to $2,920,000 as allocated by the DWP based on the MOA amendment number 1. 3, approve and forward this report to the mayor with transmittals requesting the following. A, approve amendment number 1 to the contract between the City of Los Angeles and Hargreaves Jones Landscape Architecture, Inc. to increase the total contract amount from $1,450,000 to $2,123,947.72, and add the completion of an EIR and related professional services for the Silver Lake Reservoir Complex Master Plan Project to the scope of the work. And B, authorize the president or 2 members of the board to execute amendment number 1. Work order E1908268 C-132910. I believe Ms. Weintraub from the Bureau of Engineering is with us on the item. Good morning, Ms. Weintraub.
Good morning, President Good, and good morning, Commissioners. I'm happy to be here today. I'm the Chief Deputy City Engineer for the Bureau of Engineering and an architect. And I have been working with the Department of Water and Power and the 2 council districts and the community to complete a master plan for the Silver Lake Reservoir to make the reservoir a publicly accessible open space as it is no longer a resource used for water. Commissioner Good, there was one public speaker. I think.
Yeah, thank you for flagging, and Dr. Campos just flagged for me as well. Forgive. Why don't you pause? Let's go ahead and hear a public comment. Caller, forgive me as well, and we'll do that, and then Ms. Weintraub, you can continue. Thanks. It's so hard when you're not in public or you're not, you can't see the humans, so forgive everybody. Okay, go ahead. That comes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I completely understand. We will move on to public comments on item number 3, caller ending in 732. Caller ending in 732. If you can please press *6 at this time on your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak on this item. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Christine Trong. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So I'm the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power planning manager. I've been working with the Bureau of Engineering and Deborah for the Silver Lake Reservoir Complex Master Plan, and our board recently had approved the amendment for BOE to continue leading this project through, an environmental clearance process. And as such, DWP is supporting this amendment and is looking forward to continuing to work with BOE towards implementation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I did want to give Christine a chance to talk since she has been steadfast in assisting us through this process. So before you is a request to amend our agreement, and it doesn't change the dollar amount of the agreement since we were efficient with the original funds that were allocated by the DWP board. And our goal really is to build on a very successful master plan process that we finalized the end of last calendar year. And the master plan is an attachment to this board action and allow us to use the remaining funds to do an environmental clearance to position the various projects at the Silver Lake Reservoir to better position them to go after grant and other funding sources. So with that, I'm open to any questions about the action.
Thank you, Ms. Weintraub. I'll tell you what, we'll start with President Pro Tem Davis. You're muted, Mike.
I'm okay on this item. No questions for me on this one. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Villegas.
Hi, good morning. I don't have any questions either. Thank you. Great presentation, Ms. Weintraub.
Now I'm muted. Okay, Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions. Deborah, thank you for bringing this back to the board.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. And Commissioner Coloso.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions for Ms. Weintraub. I appreciate her. And thank you also to the caller who dialed in and gave their support for the project. It's a big one, right? It's a Silver Lake Reservoir, and involves a lot of stakeholders, a lot of community, and I just want to give a big thank you to Councilmember O'Farrell's team and Councilmember Nithya Raman's team as well for their support of this project. I know they're excited to see this move forward, and thanks to DWP as well for their partnership on this. So thank you. And I'll move if nobody has any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Coloso.
Second.
I do have one. First of all, by the way, this is Yeah, this is great. It's just, I appreciate the briefing, Ms. Weintraub. The collaboration between BOE and DWP on this is excellent. I do think that it would be appropriate for the board to sign the MOA along with the city engineer. And so Commissioner Colosa, I'd like for you to be able to keep the motion, but unless you disagree, I would request that we amend to have the board president or two members sign the MOA as well.
Sounds good. I am happy to move with amendment.
Dr. Campos, you got that?
Yes, Mr. President, I will. I did note that, and that would amend recommendation number 1 to authorize the city engineer and the president or two members of the board to sign the MOU.
Yes, sir. And then we've got a second from Dr. Davis.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Any concerns or objections, Vice President Garcia or Villegas? All good. All right. Hearing none.
President Good. Just since the bureau's here, just for clarification, we're going to go ahead and leave the city engineer's signature block on there. The city engineer signed the previous MOA, was authorized to do so. So I think in this case, just from a practical standpoint, what we're going to do is you'll go ahead and just add an additional signature block. So the MOA will be signed by the city engineer, pursuant to the authority that you're granting here. You'll just add an additional signature line to it.
That makes sense.
I just want to make sure, since the bureau staff is here, they understand what it was that you were.
Yeah.
Doing.
Thank you.
And we've done that with other MOAs. We have a lot of MOAs that come through. We work very collaboratively with the Department of Water and Power. It's a very good relationship. Bureau of Sanitation does a lot of work, and so it's just like what we've done.
Yeah. Which is what I wanted to add, but that makes total sense. Sound good, Deborah?
Yes, it's totally good.
Good deal. All right. So hearing no objections, the item as amended is adopted forthwith. Thank you so much, Ms. Weintraub. Thank you. And I can't remember your name. Please forgive me, from DWP for joining us today.
Christine Tron.
Christine, thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. That's such a great, it's going to be so exciting. Okay, let's go back now to item number 2. Item number 2 is amendment number 1, memorandum of agreement, homeless mobile shower program, recommending the Board of Public Works, subject to the approval of the mayor. 1, approve the proposed amended memorandum of agreement between the County of Los Angeles and City of Los Angeles for the use of county trailers for the homeless mobile shower program. And 2, authorize the president or two members of the Board of Public Works to execute the MOA. C-133592. I think Mike Yu is with us today. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, President Good.
And I think Domingo Roscoe from LA Sanitation is here as well, available for questions. There's no comment on this, right, Dr. Campos?
That is correct, Mr. President. We also have Ryan Tehoff from Sanitation LA San as well.
Oh yeah, hi Ryan. All right.
Mr. Yu will kick it off for us.
Please proceed, Mr. Yu, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Caloza and Villegas, duly representatives, Mr. Jordan and Dr. Campos. My name is Mike Yu. I'm working for Board of Public Works Executive Office. First, I want to provide you with some brief background for the original agreement. In January 2019, under Mayor Garcetti and Council's approval, his funding at the amount of $6.5 million was allocated to continue the mobile pit stop program, also launch a new mobile shower program. Meanwhile, the County Office of Emergency Management procured 4 mobile shower trailers in August 2018. Based on the motion from council supervisors, they directed that office to locate a proper service provider to utilize those 4 shower trailers. At that moment, the city negotiated with the county and reached an agreement. So the county provided 4 shower trailers to the city to be utilized for the mobile shower program at no cost. Meanwhile, after RFP process, a service contract C-133592 was executed in March 2019 to operate the mobile pit stop and the mobile shower program. Since then, the mobile shower program has been operating very well, has been providing immediate assistance to the local homeless population, and also acting as a supplement to the mobile pit stop program. So both programs comply with city comprehensive homeless strategy. Since the program has been performing very well, in June 2020, and the Council File 19-0914, Mayor Garcetti and the Council approved to allocate additional state funding to continue mobile pit stop and the mobile shower program, also scheduled cleaning program. Recently, in March 2021, under board authorization, RFP was released to solicit the proposals for a new contract or new contracts for all three programs. As the result of the RFP process, a new contract for the mobile pit stop and the mobile shower program will be established and presented to the board approval on July 16 agenda. In order to continue the mobile shower program, so the board office negotiated with the county agreed to amend the current agreement to extend the term for another year with 2 one-year renewal options. Therefore, I request the board to approve this amend the MOA so we can still utilize the county mobile shower trailer to operate the mobile shower program at no cost. This concludes my report. I'm open to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. Mr. Orozco, reporting from the LA River. Anything you'd like to add while you're here?
Good morning, Board President, Board Commissioners. LA Sand's fully supportive of this amendment. We thank the board for this, for the hard work in bringing this contract forward and the multiple amendments. This has been a cornerstone of our services-led approach as we've integrated this service into our service-based model, using the mobile hygiene unit as a platform for tent exchange, using it in coordination with the Unified Homeless Response Center and LA Fire Department on mobile testing and vaccination when it's available. It's been a huge boom for us over not only the pandemic, but the course of this contract, and we look forward to bringing our own amendment very shortly to this body for approval for continued operation of this. So we're very grateful for Mike and TJ and their hard work, and this has led to a very successful partnership for all parties. So thank you.
Thank you, Domingo. One question for clarification, really for the public. So we have the 4 county trailers, and in sanitation, you also have how many mobile hygiene units in circulation right now? Is it 6?
We have 6 in deployment on any given day with a fleet of 10 units. Of those 10, 4 are, because of the ongoing budget crisis, there's 4 that are not staffed or using the ambassador program under 5 Keys or Urban Alchemy. Those units we do occasionally lend out to other bridge home projects as those get built out and they need restroom and shower service, so we use those to add for that capacity.
Thank you, Domingo.
One thing for clarification, Mr. President, we will be expanding our fleet to 13 units this fiscal year.
And we are also in the process of staffing up.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that we can deploy them all, right?
Correct.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roscoe. All right, colleagues. Thank you, Mike, as well. Vice President Garcia, any questions or comments?
Thank you. I guess my only question/comment, are we thinking of putting these extra mobile shower programs because we're closing some of our YMCA, or are we gonna, does that have anything to do with one another? And I don't know who that question would be for. I was looking at Domingo, so Domingo.
Vice President, so what we use is 6 on any given day as part of our daily deployment, 5 days a week, and primarily the mobile hygiene unit program under LA Sanitation supports the bridge home special cleaning zones. So they're deployed to those units. The 4 that we have basically in contingency We use those to backfill any units that go down for any needed repairs. But then we also use the additional units if we need to, when a bridge home is being put together or a tiny home village, sometimes the restroom and shower facilities aren't fully finished, or the units that they've ordered to provide that service are still waiting in backlog for production and delivery from the vendor. So we can use those to help for added capacity.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that explanation. That's all from me, President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. I would also just piggyback on Mr. Russell's answer and say, we can't get enough mobile hygiene units out there. So I think that's really the ultimate sort of answer, if I can be presumptuous, is that we need to deploy as many as we can possibly get. This is so great in the county. Commissioner Closa, any questions or comments?
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your report, Mr. Yu and Mr. Orozco. I don't have any questions on this item. I'm glad to see this moving forward and thank the county for their partnership. And it's an important part of the work that we do, especially now. So just thanks everyone for your work on this much needed service as we continue our work for people experiencing homelessness.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, President Pro Tem Davis.
Yeah, Domingo, I was going to ask, you mentioned the collaboration with the bridge programs. They have facilities within those apartments or those areas, right, in the bridge programs? How does that work?
They do, Councilmember and, or sorry, Commissioner, excuse me, sir.
I'll take the raise. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
In a conversation, right?
Yeah, I had it in my mind.
Not hear that down the hall.
Mr. Pro Tem, if I may, the bridge homes do have the facilities built out for those that are existing. And currently, we deploy these because in late July, early August, Council took the motion of resuming comprehensive cleanups during the pandemic in those zones that have been established around bridge homes. And in order to provide that service while outlaying a opportunity for social distancing and sheltering at home for those who were still experiencing homelessness, whether they were still in the public right-of-way or other areas, this provided the opportunity for that social distancing to occur while a comprehensive cleanup service was also being provided. We also then provided tent exchange for those who voluntarily wanted a new tent or for those who just simply asked for a tent built off of this program. We also built out quickly a hygiene sanitary kit disbursement, so that included masks, hand sanitizer, gloves as well.
Well, I just want to comment that this is absolutely critically important and increasingly needed as we think about this Delta variant as we're about to confront. So the work that you've done in the past is equally important to us in the future. And I would just say continue to do the good work, and it's an honor to be able to support this initiative that is really important for the health of all of the Los Angeles citizens. So thank you for your work here.
Thank you. We attach ourselves to those comments because we at Sanitation are grateful to the board initiating this contract. And like I said before, the work that Mike and TJ have done in moving this forward, we're happy to support.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I appreciate all my colleagues' questions as well. And thank you to the staff of LA Sanitation and the Environment just for the extra work and the hard effort that you all gave into helping the unhoused. I see these all over the place just when I'm driving through Los Angeles. They work, and I don't have any questions either. I think this is an important contract before us. I'm glad that we're going to be increasing, for this fiscal year. It's part of our public service to be able to provide and have some, opportunities for the unhoused to have, just a better quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I would just echo that. I also want to just also echo thanks to Mike and TJ, also Dr. Campos and our board team for initiating and facilitating this. And then thank you to LA San. We got to keep on grinding. Obviously, this is part of the existential crisis of our time, and the public health imperative can't be overstated. So thank you all. I will motion to move the item forward. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Garcia, Davis, Colosa, any concerns or objections?
None.
All right. Hearing no objections, the item is adopted forthwith. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Domingo. Y'all have great weekends.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. It brings us to item 4, colleagues. This is our status update on major upcoming street improvement projects. Who's with us for this report today?
I'm with you, Antoine Lewis.
Hello, Mr. Lewis.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Okay, we have no major projects taking place next week, but the resurfacing in the metro and valley area does have some projects taking place, a total of 9 projects, which will be 5.5 lane miles. Slurry Division has a total of 70 projects, totaling 24.5 lane miles for next week, but no majors, so no major impacts anywhere.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Colleagues, any questions?
None.
All right. Appreciate the report. You have a great long weekend, okay?
Thank you.
We have, colleagues, we continued item 5, and that brings us to item number 6. This was continued from its original board meeting date on the 18th of June. And this is our Office of Forest Management status update. The indefatigable Rachel Mallarich joins us this morning. Hello, Ms. Mallarich.
Hello, I'm just setting up my screen share so you all can see the brief presentation I prepared for this morning. So glad to be with you all. If I can get this to share. Oh, after all this time, you'd think we'd be done with any technical issues.
I was butchering screen sharing the other day.
All right, well, I may have to have you refer to the document that I shared, and I can reshare that. But I'll go ahead and dive into my presentation because we are at the end of your meeting and we want to get started. So I'm really glad to be here with you today to share an update on the Office of Forest Management. I want to start off with a huge thank you for your support in the budget process for the budget year that started yesterday. I'm really thrilled that we're going to be able to, in this budget, we will have some additional funding for city plants to continue supporting my office with some of our work on the Urban Forest Management Plan, as well as 6 months funding for a senior management analyst that will also be helping us move things forward more expeditiously, especially now that the managed hiring committee process is no longer in effect. So a huge,
long overdue.
Yeah, a huge thank you to all the staff within the board offices and to you all, commissioners and President Good, for your support with getting that assistance. I do want to share, so that's one celebration. Another is that we had our 2nd annual tree summit in May. And I will note that it was originally scheduled on a date that we thought that you all would be able to join us if you had the time, because we'd scheduled it when you were still on the previous schedule, not going back to Wednesdays and Fridays. So my apologies that it was during your board meeting that we were having the tree summit. Now we're back on a regular schedule, so we'll know next year to have it on a different date of the week so that you all can join. But we had a really great participation. Over 300 people participated day of, and other people have accessed the recording since. Again, getting a chance to, with Streets LA and other departments, highlight some research science around how trees use water, looking at a specific project in a community developed alongside a community, the Westwood Greenway, and again, robust conversation from our participants and our USC project, which I'll share a little bit about right now. We're able to participate in that tree summit to share some of the progress we've made, as well as to really provoke some of our tree advocates and interested parties on some of the science we're going to be continuing to look at for the next year's worth of work. The third celebration I want to add is our work on tree canopy equity. So again, our mayor's leadership on this issue has attracted attention and support around the issue of tree canopy equity that has existed for quite some time in Los Angeles, and with the clear goal of increasing tree canopy by 50% in areas of greatest need by 2028, we have support that has appeared in a number of forms. The two I want to highlight at the moment are our Equity Visiting Scholar Project that was led by City Plants through funding from Accelerating Climate Resilience Los Angeles, and our project with University of Southern California, their interdepartmental team that included even their community relations team within the university. Those two projects finished their one distinct portion of work. Both of them are looking at a next phase of work and have either secured or are in the process of securing funding to continue working with the city to help us think about how do we provide tree canopy in all of our communities, and how do we do that providing the most benefits and in the most efficient way possible. So those two projects looked at a couple of different things, and I'm happy to provide those reports and or a further briefing to any of you that have interest. They would take up all of my time if I went through the details right now, but that is our goal. How do we achieve tree canopy equity? How do we reach the mayor's goal of that 50% increase? And how do we do that with really efficient use of public funds? And so those two projects are huge. And again, they don't represent, unfortunately, I know some folks hoped that when the Visiting Scholar Project ended that I'd say we have the exact roadmap for how to fix this problem. But the truth is we chipped away at another component of the questions we have and have identified very clearly the next set of questions we want to have answered. And we'll be incorporating the data we've received from both projects in our planning for the planting season starting in September. So our next planting season, or September, October, 2021-2022 planting season, we'll be using some of the data from those projects to help us move forward. So a couple other work in progress that I want to share at this point. Obviously, we have a lot of concerns about our tree preservation activities within the city and ways that we can improve our tree preservation. I want to flag a thank you to the hard work of Streets LA, the CAO and city attorney for moving forward the updated fee structure for the protected tree ordinance. It seems mundane, but we know it is huge, and Streets LA will be having some additional staff next year funded by those fees to give some additional capacity for review of the protected tree ordinance. So I think that's one small step forward. We continue to have an interdepartmental task force looking at strengthening and enhancing our protected tree ordinance, including conversations around what is the right methodology for valuing our tree valuation when we do our review of trees. Are there methodologies that we can use that will help us in a variety of situations to really determine the benefits being lost and what appropriate action might be? We are continuing to look at, rather first and foremost, mechanisms for identifying trees at the beginning of any process. So frequently, again, the board, you are at the point where a lot of things have already been determined, and I know that's something that's been belabored extensively, and we are making a lot of progress. I feel, again, working closely with Department of City Planning, Streets LA, Building and Safety, and others to think about the right mechanisms, the right processes that we can implement, potentially even without an ordinance change, to help us better communicate about those trees sooner and give really good guidance to, say, project planners so that they have clear information that allows them to work with applicants early in the process. So that's been the bulk of my work and will continue to be so, because I know that that is critical to us having an even better response to cases where we have to remove trees, that we know that we did it early on. And then lastly, on tree preservation, of course, we are working on a response to to you all's motion regarding tree protection and preservation during construction, looking at how we can enhance tree protection by looking at tree protection zones and looking at not having a loss of trees due to temporary construction activities. So that is ongoing at this point in time. I'll add that I have been working with a statewide group of folks around discussion around drought messaging and our approach to trees when we do have our periods of drought. So how we can speak to the public and other agencies about how trees and water use should be considered as we continue to experience seasons of drought. And I'm very encouraged with the process of those conversations. We are so much stronger if, as urban forestry professionals, we are able to be really clear on what we think the best approach is, both to talking with the public and in terms of practice. So that's ongoing and will continue to move forward over the summer. On tree planting, I will just flag that, the board gets to hear LA Sanitation, myself last year. I know Urban Forestry in past years have also applied for CAL FIRE grants. There is a current CAL FIRE grant cycle open. And so I have been working hard with our city departments and our nonprofit partners to look at coordination. So again, we're always excited when our nonprofit partners apply for grants, and we generally provide a letter of support. This year, but something that happens is they build these projects, again, based on community feedback and need, and we're excited about that. But our Urban Forestry Division and other practitioners in the city don't always hear about it at this planning stage. They frequently will hear about it maybe after the grant is awarded. And we're trying to have the conversation at the beginning where it's just information sharing. Let's just move, again, that process to the front of the line so that our department has a chance to be aware of and weigh in, or even have collaboration as it may align with projects that they are looking at already in some of those communities. So I've been facilitating those conversations, as well as really encouraging our nonprofit partners to incorporate some of the priorities the city has right now. They all prioritize tree canopy equity, but I've also been asking them to consider how they look at the watering that they're including funding for in their grants, and ensuring we have sufficient establishment care in those grants. So that is one component. And then following on that, we also have this coordination for our planting season. How can we know generally what large projects we have. There may be some additional surprises, but our nonprofit partners and state departments typically know kind of what the larger projects are going to be working on next year. And so I've been working on looking at how we can use, again, the new data from our tree inventory, the new data from our equity projects, and the work I've been doing on our street tree list to have a conversation now around what we think we might be planting next year, so that we can not only kind of discuss and collaborate across various areas of the city, but also then potentially have some additional public outreach and transparency that we've been asked for in the past. Wanting to, from our broader stakeholders, saying, well, what are you planting next year? Are you thinking about species diversity and other things, which the departments have in the past, but this will be a way to do it kind of all together. So it's not in pieces all over the place. So I'll wrap up with just a couple challenges, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So I'm still learning. I've been here for almost 2 years, and I'm so grateful to get to work on these issues every day. But I'm still learning some of the city processes. I came with the tree knowledge, and I came with some of the project and permitting understanding, but understanding some of the city contracting processes. I'm really excited, again, that in this year's budget, the council also included a SMA, or senior management analyst, for myself and the other offices within the board to have some support on contracting. But until that person comes online, I'm still getting the opportunity to learn some new skills, and that is making some of the things related to the UFMP or Urban Forest Management Plan take a little bit longer than it might otherwise. So that is one of the challenges, and again, increased capacity is always going to be welcome, but we're looking forward to having at least one other staff member join maybe halfway through the next fiscal year. So thanks for letting me provide a kind of rapid fire update, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Malrich. That was really a helpful report. Colleagues, let's open up for questions. Vice President Garcia, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. You just haven't been here just 2 years. It's 2 years here is like 10 years somewhere else, learning-wise. So, Rachel, you always done a good job in what you're doing, and I really commend you for the grant that you actually wrote and brought into your office, and that will bring you a supplement to some folks as well. So any way that we can support you on that, of course, this is why we're here. I'm glad that you're looking at the maintenance plan and what that's going to look like. And you don't have to answer me now, and you don't have to, but I always think about, we always place a maintenance plan of 3 years. 3 years go rather fast in our world. So what happens after that? And like I said, you don't have to answer me. I'm just trying to put that out there for future as you plan ahead and you move forward with your work. what happens after the 3 years? Do we assign somebody else that comes back to us? I mean, every plan should have a after 3-year plan, if that makes sense.
And I do want to just address that briefly. CAL FIRE, not all grants allow us to apply for more than 2 or 3 years of maintenance. CAL FIRE is one of the really forward-thinking, I mean, they are our urban forestry expert as defined by the state. And within their grant program, they, several years ago, started adding this opportunity to do what they call extended maintenance, which means that even after the end of the grant cycle, which might only allow you to do around 3 years of establishment care, you can actually include in your grant application watering or establishment care or support for years 4, 5, and potentially beyond. There's some looking at the language, and that's specifically what I've asked our partners to show, is if you'd like the city to provide a letter of support for your project, Urban Forestry Division has been very clear that we need to go back to looking at a standard of 5 years of maintenance, and we want to see that reflected in their plans so that it isn't then, well, the city will figure it out. And obviously we do. Our department works very hard to take care of those trees, but when we have a funder that is willing to fund that years past year 3, it's really important that we take advantage of it because we asked them to include that in the grant in the past. So excellent question, and that's exactly what we're looking at, is making sure that we have, and again, year 4 and 5, you don't need quite as many visits as you do those first couple years. The tree is kind of getting more and more established on its own, but the ability to go out in like the summer months and to be able to provide some supplemental water or the capacity to respond to a community concern around a tree, we want to see that included in projects as much as possible when we can.
Right. Thank you for that explanation. I mean, eventually, I hope this also trickles down to where we don't have jurisdiction, more of the private development, because even in those projects, we have a maintenance plan of 3 years. And so, you know, eventually, I hope that also trickles down to that area as well. So that's all for me. Thank you for your thorough report, and I appreciate working with you every single day, Rachel.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Rachel, thank you for your rapid fire report. We appreciate that method, quite frankly. Tree preservation. We've had, obviously, time and again, issues as it relates to tree preservation on construction projects presenting in motions before the board. You've addressed it in your rapid fire report. You have been working with various stakeholders and trying to make sure that they have information so that we can think of ways in which project directors can have the information in a timely manner to better plan and prepare to preserve trees. So that is much appreciated. One of the things that I have observed as they have presented these motions before the board is that oftentimes the word has not gone forth to the natural stakeholders that come before us here on the Board of Public Works, that being the neighborhood councils, and also the council offices in terms of projects in their very respective districts, in terms of response from those offices about a certain thing that is involved in tree preservation on that project in their district. So as we are able to continue to increase the awareness of stakeholders, those are 2 stakeholders in particular who could benefit as we have issues that come to us in motions. If we could hear from those offices about an opinion, neighborhood council and council offices on a certain motion, it would certainly be helpful in our decision making moving forward. Then finally, CFAC. CFAC is a part of that as well. Is that a group that you collaborate with as well? CFAC?
Yes, I meet with the leadership of CFAC on a nearly weekly basis and always try to attend their meetings as much as I can. We're hearing their concerns loud and clear and trying to incorporate the feedback they give us, both myself and the Urban Forestry Division.
So I see as a trifecta council offices, neighborhood councils, and CFAC. And so that all of the information that you and CFAC has ought to also, if in a perfect world, be available to neighborhood councils and council offices as well. You know, to hear from some of them again on some of these projects would be very helpful as we talk about ways in which we can maximize our potential for tree preservation. The other thing is a question in terms of tree canopy equity. It was mentioned by one of the members, and she may have been from CFAC, that ficus trees were on some street in some area of town, and there was no disruption in the sidewalk. Now, of course, over time, we've seen ficus trees all over Los Angeles, and they're disrupting sidewalks all over Los Angeles. Was there some kind of way that some municipalities or areas were able to plant ficus trees in ways that did not disturb the sidewalk? That was mentioned the other day, and I was curious about it, and I didn't get to ask the person about it, but I thought that I'd ask you if you happen to know anything about that.
Yeah, every site is different. Every tree is, growing in that specific location and responding to the situation that it's in. And some of the experts I work with remind me regularly that the tree roots are opportunistic. They're going to go after opportunities for soil and for moisture. And the nature of a ficus tree is it needs space. It wants to have, it has that its roots want to be near the surface. And you can provide deep watering, you can do other things, but that plant is large and it provides really dense, beautiful shade. I know that there's parts of the city that I'm going to be really sad to see if we have to remove ficus because it's providing critical protection to residents of that area. But it really needs a lot of space to grow and be healthy. There are things you can do, like having a regular protocol like we have in some cases to do regular root pruning to kind of minimize that infrastructure damage. Although, again, then you're opening up the tree to future disease or root rot or other things. But it is a tree that can take a lot of abuse. We see that kind of across the county, that ficus trees can take a lot of rather extreme pruning, whether or not we always agree with it. But it really is a case-by-case basis. You're going to look at the health of the tree. You're going to look at the cases in those scenarios. There are some different tools you can use. Frequently, they're expensive or might require us to look at a change of some of our plans. But as a species as a whole, that ficus is going to, its nature is going to be trying to lift these areas if we don't have sufficient space.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, President Davis. Commissioner Closa?
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Mallarich. I echo the appreciation of my colleagues that you have done a ton of work for one woman army. I know you have assistance from Chorus Streets LA and City Plants on some things, but you really managed to leverage your work and position to get everyone to be talking trees and in a way that maybe we weren't before you were here, right? And I think you're really maximizing your role in that sense. A few quick things for me to add. I just wanted to also express my appreciation to you. I know as you put together your community engagement strategy, you've reached out to me and we've talked about it a few times about how do we make sure that we reach our hard to reach populations, especially when it comes to language access. And you've made a point to talk to me about that and incorporate it too in some of the proposals that you've been putting together. So I just wanted to point that out and thank you. I know you didn't mention it, but it's a key part of, tree equity, if you will, across our city to make sure that people who don't speak English as their first language understand all this great work that you're doing. So I'll mention that. The other thing I would like to see, and this is just for future work, I know you're onboarding your team, but I know some of the things that have come up through other projects that aren't necessarily city projects, but we have a role in some of them, whether it's like metro projects or, some projects that we're working on with like rec and parks. It's come up a few times in terms of like the actual tree canopy itself and like the shade that's provided by some of the tree planting. It would be really great to see maybe more guidelines. I know, for instance, like for Metro or for some of our other partners, we can't obviously enforce that, but it'd be great to share with them what some of the things that we would actually recommend they plant for these projects. We know that there's lots of rail expanding throughout our city and more sites for people to actually use public transportation, and that shade is going to be a key part of it. So I'd love to, and however I can be helpful and BOE to make sure that we share this rich information and this rich research that you know about as they finalize their designs and plans. Since for our constituents, they're not going to say this is where the city's role starts and this is where Metro's role starts, right? To them, it's all one joint, piece of public property. So that's one thing would like to see whenever you have additional capacity. The one question I had was, I was just curious, how will your team, your growing team now, work with our new climate emergency mobilization office? How will that work and be facilitated? I'm just curious how that synergy will happen, because you're both under our same roof, but there's so much overlap, right, in the work of trees to combat climate change. And I would love to understand even just a sentence or two to how that would work, and if you've had that conversation with our new director Marta.
Yes, she and I have spoken a couple times, and I think that there's many more conversations to come. I am so excited to have someone with her expertise on this collective team, particularly so focused on that community outreach and engagement around the creation of her assemblies and the roadmap for climate resilience and addressing the climate emergencies. We're going to have to work closely together. One of the things I learned as an organizer myself is, you can have eventually fatigue in the communities if you go back again and again with different things that you get to get feedback on. So I'll definitely be wanting to work closely with her when we are finally, I've shared a bit with the same plan that I shared with you, our community engagement strategy that we're starting to look at for the urban forest management plan. We're going to want to see how we can incorporate her assemblies and her work in getting the word out or engaging folks and making sure that we don't duplicate outreach efforts. So I think that will be, as we both evolve in our roles and start to really get out into the communities, we'll just have to keep talking to make sure that we are expanding the reach, because again, some folks that are thinking about the climate emergency may not be thinking about trees, and vice versa, and a chance to have that overlap and an increase in audience because of it, I think is really exciting.
Thank you for elaborating, and we look forward to seeing your joint work together, because you both have robust community engagement plans ahead, and I'm really excited for it. But yeah, to your point, I think as much coordination as we can do as possible, because it's two ends of the same coin, if you will, right? So I appreciate all your hard work, and I look forward to seeing your team grow. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Closer. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. And thank you, Rachel, for your report. It's very informational. I think I'm lucky that I get to talk to you pretty frequently and just hear a lot of the updates that are going on before this board. It's very informative, and I'm glad that my colleagues are able to hear about everything that you're working on, because it's all going towards getting the city of Los Angeles a greater tree canopy and getting best management practices, for some of our new tree plantings that we're going to be able to locate. And it's a good time to, have you here with us, because, our tree inventory is coming to an end. You have the urban forestry plan, management plan also, and then just thanks also for your significant help with our motion at the board. I know you're working on that with Streets LA as well, and it's good just to be able to have you here and just all of your expertise with us to be able to learn a little bit more and really noodle on these really difficult issues. I know I've been working with Metro, Commissioner Colosa was referencing, with their sustainability officer, Heather Repenning, our previous board member on this board, just to be able to work through, and she's also pulling me in with the appropriate Metro staff, because sometimes they're before our board, and we're dealing with just some tree permits to remove them, and so having you be a part of that effort, I think is going to be significant as well, because some of them are easier than others, and it just depends. And thank you also for handling and managing CFAC. I think that's also another big issue for us. They're a part of the public. They're appointed by all council members, and they represent the city. And I think that their opinions are really important. And I'm glad that they're participating, in our meetings. But thanks for just being able to manage and also reflect what's going on in our board with their meetings as well. I think that there's a lot always going on. These are knowledgeable people, and some are just tree advocates for their neighborhoods, and some are experts. And so thanks for just handling them and being able to be our liaison with CFAC as well. And just being able to go through some of the more difficult tree removals that we may have. Thanks for being a part of that as well. No questions necessarily from me. I think that some of this work that you're doing is significant. As I chair the Upper LA River Watershed Stakeholder Committee, we just passed for Streets LA. We approved a $13 million project on Westchester in Vermont, excuse me, and just doing a bunch of green streets, and including a bunch of trees on there. And so now that we have, additional opportunities to do that, throughout Los Angeles, I think that that's something that you could possibly be a part of as well, because we know that trees are a natural way to bring shade, to bring cooling, but also to clean our water. Either dry weather or wet weather, and there's an opportunity there that's just worth exploring, and the great staff, under Anna, and the work that they're doing there. But I think it's, a lot of good stuff is going on, with Streets LA, and this too. So I'm glad that they're able to also get additional funding for staff at their bureau. So thank you very much. No questions for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. I think pretty much everyone hit it. Just one quick clarifying question. I should remember this, and David's here, and Dr. Campos will remember too. What Streets LA got significant budget help this year with Urban UFD did, right? What did they get?
I don't know if I can give you exact numbers. I highlighted the one that I was really excited about, which is this additional capacity for the particular staffing around protected trees. But they did have other staff increases that I think are just so critical. And, speaking of Ana Tabuenaredi and Greg Spots and the whole team there, they've all been, I'm aware of the Manchester, Vermont project. There's been a lot of great collaboration on solving all of these problems. It takes all this institutional knowledge to move the ball forward. But they could speak better to the specifics of the increases.
That's fair.
One of the increases, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, Mr. President, one of the increases that the Bureau of Street Services received was the $2 million for the additional tree planting that's in I believe the UB or the GCP, but that's also a major line item for next year, or for this new fiscal year.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Campos. So it's really, the main pieces were that, and then basically this environmental compliance officer to work on protecting trees. Okay, great. And so speaking of the tree planting supplement, if you will, Brimstone question here. Can you remember what exactly is planting season?
So this has been when I first started working with trees, we talked about it being September to May. I often would, we've moved more towards October to May, and even last year, in some of the years where we've had a particularly warm October, our nonprofit partners have really held back on taking their staff out until November. It really depends on the weather we're having at that time. Because if you can prevent keen illness and stress for staff, because that is more labor intensive than tree watering, for example, the digging the hole, putting the tree in the ground. And then also for the tree itself, it's better to put it in when we have passed the hottest parts of the year, although, again, that seems to be a bit of a moving target. But I would typically say October to May is the window in which we would still be planting, but as much as we can consolidate in those cooler months, it's preferred, which that's the short story, and hopefully it doesn't change too dramatically over the next couple of years.
That's helpful. Thank you, Rachel. And then just stating for the record, I'm very much looking forward to the work of the task force around, the matter of where we see tree removal and where we see tree removal requests in the process, and where that goes into the planning and development stage. I think it's going to be really crucial. So I'm glad to hear that work is ongoing, and look forward to hearing more as things evolve. So that's all I have, and really appreciate the report. And anybody have any last or follow-up comments? Questions?
Great report. Great report.
Thank you, Ms. Malovich. Great report. Okay. Dr. Campos, I believe we have cleared the decks, no?
That is correct. You have, yes.
All right, colleagues. We have cleared it. This meeting is officially adjourned. We will reconvene in 10 minutes at 12:21 for management. Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank y'all. Have great long weekends.
Yes.